Welcome to Beyond Rent, the property management podcast brought to you by Rent Manager. Each episode, we sit down with an expert to talk industry updates, tech solutions, and top tips for those in the property management space. And now, let's get to the conversation and go Beyond Rent.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Beyond Rent. As we continue to learn more about AI and how it's impacting our world and our industry, I'm constantly more interested in getting into kind of the nuts and bolts of how it impacts specific use cases. So I'm really excited to have Becca and Leah in studio today to talk about the leasing aspect of our industry and how AI is starting to impact that. So I'm excited to learn more. So Becca, Leah, welcome to Beyond Rent.
Thank you.
Hello.
So I'm really excited to talk to both of you about this topic, but I want to have a moment where you both can introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit more about your background and your history in the industry. Becca, how about you go first for us?
Sure. So I've been in the apartment industry for over 30 years, worked for an owner-operator with about 30,000 units when I left in 2000 to start Spherexx. And I've been now with Spherexx for 25 years, serving the multifamily, single-family rental, manufactured home industry.
Excellent. And
Yeah,
Leah?
so for me, pretty simple. I've been in the industry about 20 years, a little over 20 years. Started as a leasing associate, which a lot of us do. Then I've worked on the corporate side and supplier side. So I've worked for Apartment Rating, Satisfax, and now with Becca at Spherexx.
Excellent. Thanks for giving that background. And it's so important because the two of you have a lot of experience in our industry. You have experience understanding what the PM and resident experience looks like. And you have a lot of experience with actual technology pieces because you've been around to see the evolution of what we're doing in this industry. I imagine when you first started, there wasn't a whole lot of technology back then, right? There's websites and things like that, but nothing like what we're dealing with today. So I really am going to love your perspectives because I think we need to understand where we've been to understand where we're going type mentality as we think about AI and leasing. So let's jump right in. Let's talk about this. So why is it so important to begin with to really even think about leasing analytics and how they work and how they impact your business, right? Like what's kind of the foundational reason we're even having this discussion?
Yeah, I think honestly, if I think of my history with leasing, there were some metrics, some KPIs that we captured back in the day that are no longer relevant. Unfortunately, there are some that are still using those KPIs, and as your renters have changed, as technology has evolved, you're going to want to, open up the way of thinking, like maybe we shouldn't look at just conversion rates, or maybe we shouldn't just look at number of appointments set. So there's a lot of change that has happened, and technology now allows you to sort of up your game when it comes to capturing data and the KPIs that you're tracking.
Absolutely. Because I'd imagine there's some dangers if you're not looking at the right KPIs, right? If you're not advancing and staying competitive there.
Yeah, 100%. I think, if you were to send a text message to someone, how long are you willing to wait for them to respond? For example, I think I use that example in a lot of my conference sessions. It depends on the person. If I text my daughter, seconds. You got seconds. If I text my parents, I'll give you a little bit more time. But we're now in that instant response kind of environment. That's the behavior that we have as consumers. And so you do need to have that technology, and you do need to be capitalizing on things like a speed of response.
And something that comes to mind for me right away, and maybe Becca, you have some insights into this, is if you're not responding fast enough, just as that example, the impact it has on the actual business, the revenue side of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I know everyone on site is busy. Follow-up, managing their prospects is not the only thing on their list. And quite frankly, that prospect isn't going to complain to the corporate office that they were not responded to quickly. Residents will. And so the onsite teams prioritize, and I get it. But the numbers do show us that the faster you respond, there is an absolute direct, unmitigated, very proven number set that we can present now with some of these big case studies that we're doing. And so responding quickly, so I'm saying a human, and we did, actually, let me reference a case study. We did about 20,000 units, properties that were not using AI, just using a CRM, and properties that were using a CRM plus AI. In that, we did a 6-month period from January to June 2025, and it was absolutely amazing. The human-only properties using a CRM had a response time of about 11 hours. The the AI side that had human and AI working together with the CRM, they were on average responding 1.77 minutes. So 11 hours versus almost 2 minutes. And, your prospects have plenty of properties that they're looking at. You're not the only property. And so it's so easy with large language models in particular to, like a ChatGPT, a Gemini, to be able to compare so many apartments. And so the properties that answer their questions, move them to the next level, which is feeling confident enough to self-qualify and tour and then apply, will absolutely be the winner.
Yeah, that stat is kind of wild, right?
Yeah.
Measuring things in minutes versus hours really puts it into perspective of how important that really is. And you talk about younger generations wanting quick responses and how important that is. Talk to me a little bit about kind of the prospect mentality. You mentioned they're not going to complain to corporate when they don't get a follow-up. A resident will, a prospect won't. So what's that prospect doing in the meantime while they're waiting?
Well, in the average number that we see is that a prospect is communicating with an apartment community 5 to 7 times before they feel confident to start an application and or lease. So those communications, they may communicate with 2 or 3 apartment communities during that window of time, because that also 5 to 7 communication is going to happen over a 2 to 3 day period. Prospects are making decisions to move in a 20 to 30 day window, and sometimes even faster depending on the market. And so the fastest response that answers the question, it can't just be a fast response, but it has to be a question that answers their questions and maybe even anticipates the next question to move them more quickly. So those prospects are basically going to ghost the properties that don't communicate quickly.
Yeah, I think the top of funnel looks very different now for prospects. They are spoiled for riches. They could look at single family homes. They could look at apartment communities. They can look at, all going in and renting a space together in sort of like a communal type of way. They could look into staying at home. There's a lot of different opportunities for a prospect. So when prospects are waiting on you to get back with them, they're not just sitting there twiddling their thumbs, right? They're still actively in that search.
Yeah, they're not going to sit still, right? They're going to keep moving. They're going to look for the answers that they're looking for and want so they can make that big decision. And I also wonder, as we talk about this, speed to lead and how people measure it. You had mentioned this idea of getting the right answer, not just an answer, right? That's really important to this. And so when I know that people are out there working leads and prospects and they're thinking about these things, they want to give people the right answer. And I think there's a fear that speed isn't always the right answer, right? That you need to move a little bit slower, especially when it comes to AI. So what are the two of you seeing in our industry right now with the accuracy of AI and that minutes to respond to the lead?
So there's never a perfect solution. I mean, your human beings aren't perfect either. Sometimes they answer really quickly and it's not a complete answer. The AI agent is pretty good, and so are our humans. So in terms of, are they an equal apple and apple response? They can be. Can an agent hand out a wrong piece of information? Yes, and so can the AI. I mean, we do have to feed those answers into AI. But what AI can do more quickly and more efficiently is take the requirements from the prospect. They're looking for a move-in in 2 weeks. They are looking for a first floor, and there's a particular amenity they want. So the AI can immediately walk in to the conversation with Unit 402 is a perfect fit for you. It has this amenity, it has that amenity, it's at this price point. Will that fit in your budget? But I also have, if you would be interested in something not on the first floor, I have this and this. So it can quickly get that. A leasing agent, a human agent, might not go out to the accounting program and go look that information up and type up that offering. They'll just say, yes, we have something that works for you. I think I have a unit in mind. Let's go ahead and book a tour and I'll show you that. So the AI agent is a lot more detailed with options. So I'll say that.
Yeah, I think to Becca's point too, if I were to ask my AI, I need a chocolate cake recipe, right? It's going to give me a chocolate cake recipe. But if I say I need a chocolate cake recipe and I've never baked before, the recipe is going to be totally different. The detail, the information. So to Becca's point, yeah, an AI can tell you about the information that it's been given to work with. So when we have, clients that feed us, where can I park my RV? How often does maintenance do inspections? How long has the manager been in place? Giving us those kinds of pieces of information makes that AI model even smarter, so that maybe it doesn't take 7 interactions between a prospect and the AI model to decide, you know what, I feel pretty confident this is going to be a good place. The better the information that the AI has been given, the better they can serve the prospect.
Yeah, and that's just a truth that's always been out there, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to have good data, or your reports or automations or whatever technology we've talked about in the past just isn't valuable, right? So AI is no different. It has to have access to good information.
Yeah.
I love your chocolate cake example. I heard another example that compared AI to a genie. Mm-hmm. The idea that you have to give that genie really specific information, or the wish that it grants may not give you the result you were hoping for. And the example was, if you ask a genie that say you want to be taller, but you don't say how tall, it might make you 15 feet tall. And we all know 15 feet tall is not a great height,
Yeah.
right? You're not going to fit in cars or most things that we have, right? So AI is the same way, right? If it doesn't understand the context, it can't give you really great answers along with that. So let's talk a little bit more about kind of the AI angle and what it's doing in leasing right now, like how people are using it, maybe even some of the tools that your company has, Spherexx, and how you're seeing it work. Because again, that's always the hesitation that I hear, is that it's going to give the wrong answer or a complicated answer. Where are the, I guess, best places for AI to fit into leasing today?
For me, if I were looking for an apartment, I want a really robust AI model at the top of funnel. Really robust, because the community doesn't know me yet, right? They don't, and I don't know them. So I need to start building a relationship, start building some confidence that this could potentially be a contender for me. So that means when I go to your website, when I'm sending off an inquiry form, when I'm asking where can I park my RV, and I'm asking all of those questions, that's where, for me, AI is going to be really important. And I think that's where communities are winning, when they're deploying really great AI. And to Becca's point, nothing's perfect. But when you are able at top of funnel to start building confidence, to start, being able to answer the questions that people have, so that your community is still in the running, that's when it's important. I send off a form, and if what I get back sounds like you could just rubber stamp any community's name on it, it's just generic, it's boilerplate, and renters are very sophisticated. they can tell. And even though it has a cute little name, attached to it, I'm so-and-so and I can help you. If it's really not helpful and it's really not resonating with them in an emotional way. So for me, if I were looking for an apartment, it'd have to be successful AI at the top of funnel.
And the benefit there, when you master that, you're moving, and again, I'll reference that 20,000 unit case study. The properties that were not using AI had a 32-day average vacancy. The properties that were using human plus AI had a 16-day vacancy. So that top of funnel is moving the needle. It's absolutely meeting the prospect where they are. And if they don't have time to look for an apartment till 10 o'clock at night when your office is open, and we get a lot of activity through AI on vacation days. I meant holidays. And so we want our AI agent to be covering that prospect when they have time to do their analysis. And it works. I mean, the numbers are proven.
So, and that stat was from 32 down to 16?
Mm-hmm.
Cuts it in half.
That's not a small improvement, right?
Yes.
That's a company changing, performance changing stat.
And the AI agent will also increase the tour set by 33%. That's on a 20,000 unit case study. So the proof is there for you to find a solution. Will it be perfect? It's never perfect, but our humans aren't perfect. I mean, because it's not perfect to make people wait.
That's
2
right.
days,
Yeah.
So it's worth the energy. It's not all created equal, however. Not every product in the market can deliver, but ask for trials. Trial it for yourself, see it for yourself, test drive it, find the solution that works, and the numbers are proven that it's going to deliver a better performance.
Yeah, those are remarkable numbers that people really need to think about. And I do like that point about like people aren't perfect. AI is not perfect. We're not really looking for perfection. We're looking for kind of, I guess, more like evolution and, refinement over time to kind of continue to make things better. And I want to go back to one of the things that, Leah, you mentioned as far as like people can tell if it's kind of an AI scripted response, that people are smart enough at this point to know it's just kind of giving me boilerplate. It's not really answering my question well enough. Where are we at? Because I feel like, we've been around for a while in the industry. There's been chatbots out there for a long time. And a lot of the early chatbots were really just automation, right? Looking for keywords. Oh, you said the word pet. So I'm assuming you're asking about the pet policy. I'll spit out the pet policy. And if you ask another question, I'm just going to keep giving you the same response because you keep saying pet. And that's all I know how to do. So how far have we really come in that world as far as getting away from what I would call just like a basic automation and really understanding the data and being able to like answer follow-up questions context-wise?
Yeah, I think for renters, and we have to kind of look at consumer behavior in general, there's not a lot of faith in the chat bot. Just because it doesn't matter which bot I interact with, I'm getting those boilerplates, I'm getting those sort of standard scripts or the constant same response over and over. So I think for people in general, we don't have a lot of faith there, right? But we're smart enough and discerning enough to know when there's something of interest. So I'm looking for a cable company. I'm looking around, I'm like, oh, wow, they have everything that I need, great speed, great price. Let me reach out. Even though there's a chat bot on the screen, I'm not even, worrying about the chat bot. I'm looking for myself, deciding for myself, and moving forward. So I don't think that from a brand standpoint, having bots that maybe aren't super personalized or super tailored, I don't think that damages necessarily someone's customer experience because they've interacted with enough to know that this type of technology is limited. So honestly, when it comes to the chatbots, I think that's where renters are. I think it's the next step when they have their interest, when they're ready to move forward, when they're ready to reach out to you, that response that they're coming, that they're receiving. So it's more of those AI agent type of enabled, technology as opposed to like the chat bot that's on the bottom right of the screen.
And that's where agentic comes in. So the agentic AI is the evolution from the button bot, so to speak, that you hit a button or you about pet policy, or you hit a button about fees, and it spits out a templatized answer. But with agentic AI, it is conversational. It is going to feel like it's talking to someone that does have some answers. It isn't going to sound like a human specifically, but it does a nice job. Now, we also have, in addition to agentic AI chatbots, we also have voice AI. So it's answering the phones, it's fielding questions about prospects and residents, and moving them to the next level. Now, sometimes the next level is to hand them over to a human because they're asking a question that we have written into the programming as out of bounds. Things like a prospect says, I just applied, but I'm really worried that my 300 credit score is going to affect my ability here. So is there an option? Can I put down an added security deposit, or is there something I can do? That's something that we've written into the AI to say, hand that back to the human teams to make a judgment call, because that there's a policy and then there's a judgment call that can be factored into that, but still have to color within the lines of fair housing. So the agentic AI is really making things conversational, and it's working.
Yeah, we call it a tech twin. So having, that twin, that support, that symbiotic type of relationship, but you don't necessarily have to be there 24/7.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And Becca, you brought up fair housing, and I think that's another place where people liked the automation chatbot because they really had 100% control of what it could or couldn't say, where there is, I think, a theory right now or a common belief that AI might say something that breaks fair housing. And just like an employee, if an employee breaks fair housing, the company is responsible for that action. Is that still a risk today, or are the tech companies really building things out to safeguard against some of these fair housing concerns?
Yeah, we do build safeguards or guardrails into it. And so when a topic is brought into the conversation, whether it's typed in an email or a text or it's spoken, we're going to hand that back to the onsite teams for additional discernment beyond what we've educated the AI to handle. So I think we do a great job of that, and I think all the companies providing AI are very much in tune with staying in compliance with the regulations.
And I want to go back to something you had mentioned about holidays and off hours and things like that. So thinking about the behavior of a prospect and the ability of AI and technology, what analytics are out there, or are you starting to track things about time of day? Because I've often wondered that about our industry, right? I don't want people to have to work in the evenings and so forth and be taken away from family and so forth. We do know that is when people aren't working, a lot of people. So that is when they're probably on the internet searching for things. So do you have any stats or any stories to tell about kind of that analytic tied to leasing and the behavior around the time of day or day of the week?
So the ranges go from, again, depending on the type of asset and where it's located, anywhere from 30% to 60% of your inquiries are coming in after hours. Now that's just prospects. I don't have that number for resident communications handy, but for just prospects. So that is another reason why having AI, an agentic AI solution that is going to be well educated on how to answer specific questions and guide that prospect to next steps is getting the return on investment that we're seeing. So it's a very small investment for the returns. I mean, is AI worth it to just shorten your vacancy in days vacant in half? Yes. Is it worth it to respond more quickly, because we know that responding quickly is engaging that prospect when it's convenient for them. So it's just good customer service. It's absolutely getting a return on investment that really should cause all your readership to say, I need to at least test it at a property. Test it for yourself, and the proof is in the pudding.
Yeah, I think when someone's reaching out on a holiday, they know the office is closed, right? They know there's no one there that's going to pick up the phone and ask them 1,000 questions before they tell them whether or not the 1-bedroom is in their price range or, what's available. So it's very interesting to have the capability to track and analyze activity, because it does give you a really good sense of who your renters are.
That's a really good point as far as they know when you're open and when you're closed. So these 60% that are reaching out after hours, they're not shocked that you're not answering the phone or their email right away or whatever form submission they submitted. But I think they will be pleasantly surprised when they start getting information, right? And getting that feedback so they can actually move the process along a little bit faster than maybe even they were expecting. So that is really interesting. But again, I'm going to go back and say that again, 60% are after hours contact, right? That's a lot, right? That's noticeable. Like you said, it's enough that people really should be thinking through what this means for their business. So help me understand a little bit more about the prospect. They're looking for a place. How much is the brand tied to that? Is that something that you can even see through analytics as far as the brand experience and whether or not somebody selects one property, one community over another?
Yeah, 100%. When I was with Apartment Ratings and Spherexx, we did the biennial online renter study. And one of the stats that we've been asking for over 10 years was, would you consider the brand name in terms of the community that you're looking for? For 10 years, that number was in maybe 21% was the highest it ever been, considering the brand name. So last time around, they switched up the question, would you not consider renting at a community because of the brand name? Over 36% said I would not, based on the brand name. So we have to think about these tech decisions that are being made. Does that hurt or help your brand? Not does it hurt or help your leasing, because that kind of goes without saying. We have numbers to talk about that. But the tech that's in place, what does it do in terms of your brand perception? And we talked about the stat that came from Acuity that said 70% of consumers would consider switching brands after one bad AI-supported experience. Now, it's not directly correlated to multifamily. However, it's behavior. And so if you think about, are you hurting, are you helping your brand based on the technology that's in place? Remember, these renters don't know how fantastic your teams are. They don't know how capable your maintenance staff is. They don't know that you've won goo gobs of awards before. They don't know how amazing the experience at your community is going to be. All they really have to go on is the top of funnel type of interactions that they have.
Yeah, that 70% is very interesting from the standpoint of the behavior side, that we've all had some bad experiences, whether it was a chatbot or AI. Sometimes we don't know the difference, but we've all had those. And so I think sometimes, these operators, as they're making decisions on what to do or not to do, they're thinking back personally in the experiences that they've had. And if they've had a bad experience, they may quickly say, well, I don't even want to hear AI. It's not ready for me. It's not ready for us. And it's not ready for prime time because I had this one bad experience. And now I'm just going to apply that to all these other situations. As you're talking to your customers and operators in the industry, are you getting some of that objections when you start talking about AI, or are people a little more open at this point?
There is still some bias. There are still some companies that say, well, we want the personal approach. But I can assure you the AI agent does give a personal, quick, effective response. And so, it's not going to be a chatty Cathy. You You ask a question, it's going to give you the answer and give you options, and it'll do so quickly. It will also work that lead to next steps, and those are the things that you want out of your human agents as well. So, Leah, do you want to piggyback that?
I think the thing is your leasing agents can't be there 24/7. Like, let's just be real, let's just be honest. Our teams cannot operate 24/7. At some point, they're going to miss a phone call. They're going to miss an email. They're going to miss a lead. And so why not have that tech support backing them up to where they do feel as though I can concentrate on this project or this resident, this task, because I do have a tech backup that's actually helping me.
Absolutely. And that's where I think AI is going to have the biggest impact over the next couple of years. And we talked a little bit about this before we started recording, that for some companies, the efficiencies will allow them to not have to add new labor, right? Add new staff members. It'll allow them to find efficiencies and repurpose people into really high value roles and continue to add value in those ways, right? So I think that's where it gets exciting. So it definitely sounds like there is a lot of shifting recently where people that were maybe concerned, I hate to say afraid of AI, they weren't really afraid. They're concerned that it wouldn't be the right fit for them or produce the right brand experience and experience with their residents. That seems to be shifting a little bit as people start having these better experiences with there. So while we think about like leasing analytics, you've referenced a case study a few different times of nearly 20,000 units, and you really did a comparison of those using a product with AI and those using without AI. I think that's really, really important that we're starting to actually look at the data, look at the information, and having these case studies out there so people understand the performance of it. Can you give us some more background, maybe some more detail around that case study? Obviously, I know why you did it, but like kind of the how you went through that process and maybe some of the results that you pulled out of it.
Well, it was perfect timing because up until, we've had our CRM since 2006. And so there was no AI until a few years ago. And so we had a great opportunity to say, okay, let's take 20,000 units randomly selected across the country. Let's take 10,000 units, from that are just using our CRM and take another 10,000 units that are using our AI agent. And it was a great time to do that because we are still having customers a little leery about, is AI going to deliver what I want for my brand? Is it going to represent? But you also have to kind of say, is it the brand representation I want if our teams can't get to the leads quickly? So that's a reflection of your brand as well. Mm-hmm. So these prospects are coming into your property well educated. We have more information on our websites than we've ever had. They are self-qualifying. They already know they can afford $2,500. It's on your website. They would not have taken the time to engage if they couldn't pay that rent. So that being said, these are red hot leads that we have a vacancy to fill. The winner is clearly going to come ahead with AI. And so, that one number I mentioned earlier about being able to cut your vacancy in half, that we took an average rent, and that's a $300,000 savings. That's a no-brainer. I mean, if we can show you that it is going to represent your brand professionally, it's going to guide the prospect, and it's going to be there when the prospect is needing to communicate, to me, there's no reason to not at least test it at a property. So I'm trying to think of some other metrics on that case study. I should have brought my tablet in here. The occupancy was actually higher, 1% higher on the 10,000 units using AI. And again, that's all because of speed and quality of the answer to guide that prospect during the time frame, which is very often after hours, that was moving that needle. So we just did not see any negative reasons to not consider it. And we did look high and low for that. And there just was not a negative, because we do want to always advocate on behalf of our customers and provide accurate data, but it was strong and powerful.
And the fact that you did this across 20,000 units nationwide, it wasn't one portfolio, it wasn't a specific this or that geography base or anything like that. So it kind of removes a lot of those situations where somebody might say, well, that works for so-and-so, but they operate differently than me. No, this was many units across many scenarios.
Yeah, and looked at everything from the follow-up. I mean, I know as a leasing associate, I gave you maybe 3 follow-up attempts. And then I was like, oh, they're not interested. But Becca, you had a great stat from Harvard that said it takes at least 9 follow-ups. I don't know, honestly, in my personal experience, that I gave 9 follow-ups.
Right.
You know, I tapped out. I tapped out at 3 or 4 because I just figured I was either bugging the person or they weren't interested, or they would have called me back by now or emailed me back by now. So there's a lot of advantages to having someone do those extra reps for you, or having that technology do what it takes to, get the kind of response that you want. Whether it's an appointment, a follow-up, just to let you know what's going on. I honestly, as a human being, this is where, humans and technology are different. Me, human being, you get 3. And then I'm busy. I need to do other stuff. And so having that technology in place to kind of pick up the slack and support me on the other rounds that need to be done.
You're absolutely right. Human behavior is so important, because you're right. 3 contacts from you. If you tell AI to do 9, it will do 9. It's not going to do 8. It won't do 10. It won't vary. It'll do exactly what it's told to do. So there's definitely some advantages there. Well, that's great. So I want to learn a little bit more about leasing metrics. Earlier in the conversation, Leah, you mentioned that some of the metrics that people are looking at today are different than what they looked at in the past. And a lot of that is because we have access to new data and we can look at it in different ways. So are there specific stats that you would say are foundational at this point that not everyone's using, but that they should be using on the metric side?
Yeah, I think, I don't know if it's just tweaking what's currently there. For example, conversions. I think for conversions, you have renters who are looking way further out than communities have availability for. They're looking 6 months from now. They're looking, maybe even they just moved in down the street and, oh, I missed this place. Let me go see what you guys have. And so if you have a leasing associate who's done 10 tours this week, their conversion rate may not be great based on viability. So are we scrubbing out those tours that they've taken where they're not truly viable tours? So maybe out of the 10, I had a good shot with 5. And so maybe that's what we should be looking at. How did I do with those 5 as opposed to how did I do with those 10? I think we were talking about this yesterday. We pool renewals. Most communities will do like a renewal pool where they'll put them all together and everyone kind of, enjoys the spoils. But we don't necessarily do that with leases. And it does take a village at this point to make sure that you're, securing those leases. It's not just the leasing associate's job anymore. Sometimes when you have long tenured employees, which is what we're starting to see now, employees are staying longer. You have to sort of think different, right? Let's go with a different type of incentive program as opposed to that $50 per lease each time you lease a home. Looking at things a little differently. I always advocate for the lead to lease to leave attribution. I think that's super important from a marketing standpoint. It should help marketers figure out where should our money be going. Those kinds of metrics I think are really important.
Excellent. Thanks for sharing that. I think that's always important for people to look at maybe what they're doing in their operations and then compare to what others are doing, because we all have that tunnel vision where we just, there's what we've always done. So we just keep doing it over and over and over again. And we don't realize that there are other metrics that we need to be paying attention to. And then, Becca, if somebody is listening to this, and I would venture to say a lot of people that are listening are either interested in AI, but many probably are not using it to the depth of what we're talking about today. So if somebody's listening and they're like, well, what really is like a good next step? Like, what are the questions I should be asking? Like, they don't even know where to start. What is that starting point for someone?
Well, I do want to mention we actually have, pardon me, the option for customers to go slowly into an AI rollout. So, for example, maybe they just want to use AI to score the inbound and outbound phone calls. AI can do that.
Yep.
And it does it effectively. It has 18 different points it measures. You can see exactly where your teams, your human teams, need to improve on those phone calls. We also know that phone calls are still the highest conversion point out of all the ways to communicate. Phone is still awesome. And so you can start easily with AI with us. You could start with just that and then slowly roll out maybe the AI web chatbot, which is agentic. And you see how that works. And then maybe we also then allow, maybe you have a property that is short-staffed. So let's turn on our AI to answer phone, email, and texts to cover your team. See how it works in those environments. You can turn it back off if you get your team repositioned. You've got your full staff in place now. So letting people be able to really work it in phases and test drive it. And we built it so that we could ease customers in slowly. But many customers just jump right in, turn on all the ways that the AI can assist. So we provide those options. You can go slow or you can go fast, but you will be able to see the metrics. It's all there for us. And I will say even the conversion ratios are higher on the properties with AI, just because they'll have larger volume of tours. So again, it's going to make the teams a lot more efficient and give them more ways to make higher commissions.
Now that's great. And I like that they can go slow, because I think that for a lot of people, this is a little bit of a trust but verify type of product where they want to pilot it here, maybe turn on this feature. I'd imagine a lot of people, once they start seeing some of these results, can't turn it on fast enough, right? Like just all properties, all units right away, because they want those benefits. So excellent. Well, as we come to the end of the episode, you started talking about it a little bit there. Let's learn more about Spherexx specifically. So I know your products and so forth, but hopefully our listeners know most of your products. Can you give us a quick rundown of all the different things you do and maybe point out where you're using AI the most? Like these are the products, like you said, the CRM tool and so forth.
Mm-hmm. So Spherexx is both an advertising agency and a software development company. We've been around 25 years now. We've been an integration partner with Rent Manager for 10 years. And we provide products like we have a CRM or a lead management tool. We have a syndication tool that will update your ILSs, Google, any place where you're listing your unit availability. We have a market intel product that lets you study publicly available data about your comps. We have a revenue management product that helps you optimize your asset management and give you peace of mind that your product is fulfilling and by product I mean your apartment community is fulfilling its optimum efficiency. We have a commission and bonus management product that will make it easy for your teams to change up even commissions and bonuses, what isn't working. If you're wanting to try a pooled environment where you're pooling all the money that can be shared across both the maintenance and the on-site teams. And I know I'm probably leaving out a product.
Had websites?
Oh, well, that's the ad agency side.
Yeah.
Yep. We have all the website business and, of course, the search engine marketing. We're very involved in fee transparency right now to make sure everybody has that covered. And in terms of how we position ourselves in the market, we try to solve gaps in processes. So if a client tells us something is tedious or not seamless between their accounting program and us or another third-party vendor and us, we have such a large bench of developers that we can usually come up with a solve with, getting all the parties together and work through solving those issues. Because ultimately, we want all of the tech stack to work well together. And so that's what we're committed to.
Yeah, it's always great to hear your list of products and features, obviously developed over a number of years. And I like how you ended there, that you're really interested in solving those gaps, right? And I just know that as you've worked with customers, you see those, right? And you're like, we can help. We can help you with this. We can help you with that. Let's build new things. Let's do new things. I've worked with you for a long time, and I just continually see that from your team, that you really have more of like a servant mindset for the industry. Like, how do we serve the industry? How do we take care of these things? Nobody's solving this problem. Well, we could, right? And why not? And let's go do that. So I think that's great. Well, if somebody wants to learn more, how should they reach out to your team?
So the easiest way is through email. You can email us at salesteam@spherexx.com or sales@spherexx.com. You can call us. We have a toll-free number, 866-491-7500, and we have a human being that answers the phone. And we, of course, have all of our information on our website. And in particular, for Rent Manager customers, we have www.spherexx.com/rent manager, and that talks about all the things that we do collectively with our shared clients.
Yeah, that's wonderful. We've loved the partnership with the Spherexx team. We know a lot of our customers get a lot of value out of what you're doing. And you talked about a human answering the phone, which is really funny because we're talking about AI, but they value the team as well, right? They have good experiences with the team. They feel well supported while using those products. So, well, Becca and Leah, this has been a lot of fun. I really appreciate both of you taking the time to come out and sharing your thoughts on this, because I do think this is really important for our industry to get better. We have to use technology better, and the leasing part and with AI I feel like we're scratching the surface of all of it.
Yeah, 100%. I think this would have been a different conversation 2 years ago, but we're here now. We're here. This is where the industry is when it comes to AI and technology.
Excellent. Well, thanks again for your time, and thanks to our audience for listening to another episode. And until next time, keep going beyond rent.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of Beyond Rent. If you enjoyed this podcast, spread the word on social media and with your peers in the industry. To be notified when more episodes are released, subscribe using your favorite podcast player. Beyond Rent is brought to you by Rent Manager Property Management Software. Learn more about Rent Manager's industry-leading software solutions at rentmanager.com. Until next time, keep going beyond rent.